Sponsor an orphan, and you'll help support a vulnerable child to have the education they've always dreamed of, so they can build a brighter future. You'll be feeding a hungry stomach and a hungry mind with knowledge that will last them a lifetime. That's the power of an education. Sponsor an orphan now with Islamic Relief.
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. This is your brother Preacher Moss, the host of the SOS, the ShOUT Show. We're broadcasting from Mass ICNA here in Chicago. Our last day. Now, please let me apologize for yesterday having to do a rebroadcast. I was caught up in a meeting, and I just did not want to risk Chicago traffic and being late or possibly missing the show. So forgive your brother for that. I want to give a shout out to a couple people. I want to give a shout out to Sister Margaret Hill with Muslim Arc Anti-Racism organization. They're doing tremendous work. Nasiha, want to give you guys a shout out. They're now in here in the United States as well as in Canada. Shout out. I'm going to do a little ad. I'm going to give a shout out, of course, to Black Seed Oil Gummies. Like I said, eliminates everything except death and stupidity. So we got that. And as well, we got so many people, that great people that I actually got to spend time with, and they're going to be part of our family as we move forward into 2023. And coincidentally, this is our last show headed into 2023. Last show. Is that we got one more? We got one more. I'm so sorry, brothers and sisters. We got one more. Sister Tana has corrected me. I don't have a calendar around. Your brother's just talking. So forgive me for that. But listen, we have a great show today. This is, I don't want to say a different theme, but, every once in a while you have to have conversations. And the last couple days, I've had several conversations with family members throughout the month, dealing with the loss of my father, dealing with the loss of Sister Lorraine Kitchen, dealing with the loss of my Aunt Shirley. And, it was interesting because we're talking about our seniors, how we love our seniors. And there is a process that we really need to go through in the aspect of understanding aging and framing care for our love and love for our parents. Having gone through that prior to the loss of my father, I thought it was really, really interesting because I'm still in the midst of it right now. Alhamdulillah, my mom is still with us. And many of you understand what I'm about to be talking about here momentarily. If we have older parents, we love them, but there is a systematic understanding that we have to develop to make sure that we're able to care for them in the best ways, with the best intentions, and inshallah, with the best results. Okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, before I get started, also I want to give a shout out to some of our people. We say sick and shut in, and some of them are infirm. We want to make sure we are making du'as for Shifa, for Sister Mary Adams, the mother of John Adams, and Sister Carol Slocum, the mother of Doug Robinson, a fantastic sound guy, part of our ShOUT family. And anyone else out there who is dealing with a loved one or someone who is not feeling well. They're not their best selves. They're not living their best life. I'm not talking about anything about mental health. That might be an issue, but we're just talking about sometimes people need to know that they're loved, need to know that they're cared about, need to know that they value, they matter. Even if you tell them a million times, sometimes you got to tell them 1,000,001 times. And the story today begins with the fact that we all have a mission, that we have a provocation to take care of our parents. Our parents took care of us, and then, of course, the evolution of life. They took care of us as children. We take care of them as adults. The roles reverse. We've heard that before, and it's true. But in that space of the roles reversing, there's some very important, some very vital information that we need to know to be able to prepare, if you will, to prepare and execute in the best interest of our parents. Now, it sounds, I'm just speaking, but I just want you to know it takes a lot. You will find yourself grinding the gears of your faith. You will find yourself upset. And it's okay. It's a part of the process. Why? Because we don't know what our parents are going through. We're not established in their emotions. You have to think about it. You're a child catching up to parent emotions. If a parent had you at the age of 25, you have to catch up to their emotions, and you're 25 years late. Understand that this requires kindness, and it also requires patience, and it also requires faith. Okay, we're going to be back talking about aging, framing care and love for our parents here on the ShOUT Show. Thanks for joining us. All right, we're back. So listen, we want to get into our ShOUT Show family pretty quickly here. We haven't been able to do it. I wasn't able to do it yesterday, and I normally, when I pre-tape, I shout out everybody. I just didn't have the time. But what I like to do is make sure everybody's in the house today. So whether you're traveling, you're in the space, you're going to be well thought of. If you're a ShOUT member, a ShOUT family, royalty, we're going to shout you out. So we want to start. We're going to give a shout out Sister Mary Moss. She will definitely be a part of this conversation today. What's going on, Mary Moss? She says, stay warm, SOS family. We trying. It's a heat wave here in Chicago. It was 27 degrees. I was like, ooh, let me take off this jacket, right? But feeling better. Thanks so much, Mama San, for joining us. And of course, we got Mr. 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, our brother Atar Rashid. What's going on, beloved? Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. He says it's a balmy 37 in Toronto. Boy, I don't know, man. You better get the cool truck, because 37 compared to what we had last week. You lucky people ain't walking around butt naked. So alhamdulillah for that. Satana's like, no, we don't want that. Shout out my dear brother Johnny L. Thomas, better known as JT. What's going on, beloved? Thank you so much. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, little brother. Thank you for tuning in, and I appreciate it. Much love to you and the family. It was great seeing everybody. All right, and my big brother Bilal Salahuddin, representing the Queen Sonia Salahuddin. What's going on, my brother? He says in the same room today. Well, alhamdulillah, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brother. Thanks so much for joining in. So, and yes, we are, Satana. We will. I'll throw it to you and just run it. That'd be great. So, and we want to also give a shout out to executive producer, whose role is expanding as we speak. Alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to Sister Satana Whitfield. How you doing, sister? How's everything on the East Coast? Everything good? She gives the big thumbs up. Y'all can't see it. It's just a big thumb. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much. But thank you so much. So let's go ahead and get started here. And let's get out our place a little bit. I'll frame a little bit of care. My mom, love my mom. I mean, she knows this. And it's clear. My mom has had a lot of health issues in her life. So we've had fervent relationships between her doctors and hospitals for quite a number of years. And a lot of times it was things that dealt with symptoms or required small surgeries or things like that. But it does come to a time whereby the illness is a little bit more chronic and they have to do with age. I would probably pinpoint that when my mom had her heart attack. She had a silent heart attack some years back. I was on tour. As a matter of fact, I was in Dallas. I think it was 2012. And I couldn't get a hold of her. And it went all day long. Couldn't get a hold of her. And finally, I got a call from my Aunt Maxine. May Allah be pleased with her, who called to let me know what was going on and also let me know that my mother was okay. Though it started out as what is called a silent heart attack, it had repercussions. One of the repercussions is that, for her to be able to go home, she wound up spending a considerable amount of time at a rehabilitation place, actually two, and that led to a lot of issues. We got her out. We got her home because I felt like, me being me, and I'm the only one in I'm the only son she has. But me, I felt like the rehabilitation place was not healthy for her. I felt that they were doing things that were underhanded, things to acquire her house. This is all the stuff that goes on. So you guys need to know this. Talking to her about, why don't you just stay here? They weren't feeding her. They weren't working her out. They weren't giving. It was just a mess. And my aunt had to jump in, and we wound up getting my mother out of the rehabilitation place. So what happened was we got her home, and then the clear truth came that we were not ready. As much love as we have, we were not ready for this whole aspect of home health care. We just were not. The creme de la creme of just screwing up is my mom fell out of a wheelchair as we were having an argument about taking her in a wheelchair, and she wanted to crawl, and she fell out. She chipped her tooth. It was really bad. And it was really, really bad. And we kind of rallied the troops, and we got ourselves together, and we came up with this mantra that whether we know exactly what we're doing or whatever, we're going to do it together. And our mantra was, my mom probably remembers, we ain't no punks. So there's a picture somewhere, my mom smiling with a chipped tooth going, we ain't no punks. And what that meant for me was you had to be vulnerable. You had to ask questions. You didn't know. You had to bring other people in. A shout out to my cousin Ophelia, who is a nurse, a home health care nurse, and she came and she really filled in a lot of blanks for us. How to bathe my mom, it was a thing. My mom also wound up not being ambulatory for about 9 months, close to 10 months, and she had to rehab, walking, and all of that. And so you got to imagine, for me, it was a lot because I was on the road. So I was trying to work. And so here's some of the things that you should be aware of. That we care and we love for our parents, but the healthcare system does not do the same thing. The legal system does not do the same thing. One of the things my mother and I didn't have to go back and forth was we didn't have to go and try and figure out who was going to provide the care. A lot of families drop the ball because they don't know who's going to provide the care. And a lot of the people lead with love, and then there's arguments and personalities. Case in point, my grandmother, when she went into her spiral with dementia, my Aunt Ruth quit her job, and she was the primary caretaker. And I'm going to tell everybody here, this is really, really important. If you are going to be the primary caretaker, you must make sure that your health is up to snuff, that you're going to be okay, that if you have high blood pressure, you deal with blood pressure, circulatory, these things are called vascular dementia. You will, in many regards, speed up that space because you're constantly actively going. So you got to be in some kind of shape. So get yourself checked out. That's number one. Number two, which is really, really important. Hey, assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Brother Eric. Thank you for joining us. Number two, that's really, really important. This is where my mother helped me out. And I used to be on her about, why you call these people? She has a direct line to Blue Cross Blue Shield. They argue every day. I hear them on the phone like, can we go out and get something to eat? No, doctors, bills. Let me tell y'all something. Your retirement, your Medicare, your Medicaid, private health insurance. In the end, the game is it doesn't cover everything. You will come out of pocket. You will spend a large amount of money. Hear me now. You will spend a large amount of money providing healthcare. And people go, what are you saying, Pritch? Listen, it means that the healthcare system is not trying to put money in the game for longevity of our parents and our elderly. They would rather say, hey, so-and-so had a good run and move on. You know, it was I think it was a conversation I had with my dad a couple years ago about somebody. And my dad had a really, really good way of explaining how systems break down, how people get sick, and this is what happened, and this is what happened. And, you know, we had a situation in our family with my Aunt May, who was in a hospice. And he had explained everything that was going on in that process. And my relatives, my cousins, God bless them, they didn't know who was going to provide the care, even to the point who was going to sign on for the DNR, do not resuscitate. They literally thought, well, she's in hospice, you know, that she was going to come back. And what happened was it created a lot of dissension. And I don't want to say dissension, but, you know, the person is passing away, but that person is in pain. That's why they give them morphine. They're in pain. They're not there to just make it comfortable. And just that little breakdown in communications created a rift that was so deep that I literally, my father didn't attend his sister's funeral. He couldn't take it. And he was a strong dude. He was emotional about this. So you got to remember that. Understand you got to have to put some money out there. So start saving, number one. And number two, which is actually, this should be number one. You got to know what the power of attorney is. Somebody has to be on power of attorney. The reason is when something happens and these bills come, you don't have time to try and figure out the legal aspects of how you do it. Okay? Time is literally money. And that money needs to be released to take care of. Something happens, things need to be run smoothly for the bills to be paid, the doctor's bills to be paid, and the insurance to be paid. And for all of us, it's a tough time sometimes to talk to our loved ones about an eventuality that you become sick or an eventuality that you pass away. You've got to ask about the money. You've got to ask about how do I financially put you to rest. And these are things that's real. And as Satana has put out there, can you put that up, Satana? Yeah, and the power of attorney ceases when the patient dies. It's very important. So herein you have another space, and that means what, Satana? You got to have a will. You got to have a will. Okay? So don't be shy about those things. Ask those tough questions. Here's another one that you should be aware of. As much as we love mom and dad, they're going to change. With things like dementia, you're going to get different behaviors. You're going to get called some names you never heard before. They're going to fight you. One day it's up, one day it's down. One day they love you, one day they say get out of the house. These are the processes of being with. I saw my grandmother give my aunt hell, and she couldn't talk. And she gave her hell. This is part of the process. So understanding that means that framing our care and our love means that you got to have a thick skin, thicker than you realize. And in the scope of having to take care of your parents, you also have to have agreements. Don't jump in and crush their independence. This is me. I'm learning this. Don't just come in. My mom would tell you, I come in the house, like, that. And I am guilty. 100% guilty. This, that, and sometimes you don't understand that this is the level of proficiency. It's not your level of proficiency, it's their level of proficiency. And more importantly, this is the level of functionality. And you have to respect that. You know, ask them what they need help with. Ask them what they're comfortable with. Sometimes they need things, they're small things, but ask. Don't assume, ask. Here's the big one. This is a huge one. It has to do with where the care is going to happen. Now, this is a large one, so we're going to take a break and come back. But don't go anywhere. We're talking about aging, framing care for parents, framing and care for love and parents. We'll be right back.
babies. Welcome to Radio WCUC, Convenient Urgent Care, home of the smart patient. This is DJ What It Do. You know what time it is. It's the top of the hour, and the request lines are open. You know what you want to hear. I know what you want to hear. Operators are waiting.
I just got to hear Don't Get the COVID.
Don't get the COVID. Put your mask back on. The Delta COVID, more contagious than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get the vaccine. You know that it can keep you safe, and your people living up in your space. Don't get the COVID. You need to wash your hands. The Delta COVID is more deadly than before. Don't get the COVID. Go on and get your vaccine. You know that it can keep you from dying. Don't leave your family all alone and crying. Don't get the COVID.
We invite you to join our fight against COVID and against misinformation. It's time to listen to the doctors and trust the science.
When I think of people dying that don't have to die, it makes me sad. Now is the time to be sober. Together we can make this thing over. Let's fight the COVID. Convenient urgent care, home of the smart patient.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS to ShOUT. So listen, I am coming on because I am advertising, I'm giving an endorsement for black seed gummies in original organic elderberry. Now, they say that this cures everything but death and people that owe you money. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you something for my brothers and sisters. Go out and get some. I know some of you don't know what elderberry is, and that's probably why you're dying with stroke and you're only 16 years old. Listen, just trust me. Pick it up. This Preacher Mars talking about, again, black seed oil gummies. Talk to you soon. Remember, pick it up. And if you don't know what elderberry is, you just don't know. This is the perfect thing you need for when you have a long 3-day conference in Chicago. All right, sometimes I crack myself up. All right. So listen, getting back to this, because my mom is probably going to say you need a longer show. Satana is probably going to say you need a longer show. And I am going to absolutely agree with them. Listen, this is a big one. And it has to do with the healthcare, home health plan for your parents. You have to have an understanding, a benchmark of when you need to change home health care. I heard a startling statistic about falls. A lot of our parents are like, don't ever put me in a nursing home. And we don't want to do that. We want them to be in this space. I do. I want them to be in this space where they're most comfortable. But the reality is things happen. And sometimes parents, as they get older, you're dealing with memory. And the big fear is, you leave the stove on. We've always heard these things. Also, you hear about falls. And as our parents get older, and it's really important to understand about falls, that a broken hip, actually 12% of the time leads to death in 1 year. And say a broken hip at a nursing home leads to a death in 1 year in 30% of the cases. So you have to understand where this stuff is coming from. So have a very sober conversation about, Mom, these are the benchmarks when we need to make a move. People going, what does that mean? And this also does not mean put them in a nursing home, but understand the cost. Home healthcare person, that's $25, $35 an hour. You're talking about a nursing home, $350 to $400 a day. These are the realities that we have. And I think we all need to be really, really careful. And that's it. Also, the permanent parents want to move in with you, or move in with you, or you move in. I ain't moving in with you, Mom. I'm just kidding. I'm stopping a lot. But she's right. I Alhamdulillah, I'm blessed to be able to coexist with my mom at her house, at our house, and it's been a work in progress. But we did it early, meaning, and I will say that some of the healthcare issues that she had or crises that she had early allowed me to kind of develop a routine about how we come into the house looking for signs. And it's funny, because at times providing this care, like I said about my Aunt Ruth, sometimes my mother looks at me and go, you're worrying too much, and it wears me down. And I'm not as healthy as I can be. And it's just mental. Love of our parents is metaphysical on one level, but it is an entirely different animal of emotional intelligence because we don't know. You see, we understand that love is great for all these things. Love doesn't heal. Love doesn't necessarily bring down blood pressure. Love doesn't necessarily cure cancer. It is the thing that we have to engage to understand that at some point in time, the things are out of our hands. And if we can begin to have that conversation, it's a little bit easier. So before we wrap, I just want to make sure I cover a couple things. Talking about framing care and love for our parents, the elderly, the aging. First of all, you better frame it for yourself because you ain't getting no younger either. And as much as we look at our parents and we go, you got a heart that can stop. You got arteries that could clog up. You got eyesight that could go left. You got bones that could break. You are not immortal. Okay? In fact, I heard Imam say, this is the prototype to understand aging. And if we're lucky that we watch our parents age gracefully, we might learn something. First thing I said about framing this whole thing, if you have brothers and sisters, please sit down and talk with them and have a conversation about who's going to provide the care. Who's going to be the primary caregiver in that situation? Because the primary caregiver sets the tone. The worst thing that can happen is the primary caretaker gets frustrated and leaves, and then someone else has to come in. That's a terrible feeling for an elderly parent that this child didn't want to do it, and it's that moving around and being passed around. It's really, really important. That's number one. Number two, please, please, please understand that aging is not cheap. That all the programs, the government programs, and private insurance and all of that, it doesn't matter. You're going to pay money. 80-20 means that you owe 20% of something. Well, guess what? You're going to owe the 20%. And while somebody will cover the 80%, they have a large and vast pool of resources and revenue to pull it from. You do not. So you need to also sit down and talk about finances with your parents. Not, I want this money, but mom, in the eventuality, dad, in the eventuality this thing happens, where do I go to make sure that I'm able to maintain what you need? Maintain your care. It's very important. Number three, get yourself in shape. Get yourself in shape, because providing for a parent at an advanced age is not easy. It could be the same for a child, a special needs child. You've got to be in shape to assist a special needs child. And I like to say that the elderly at a point, they're not special needs, but they have special needs. The emotional, psychological, and love components of watching our parents get older is very beautiful. It's very tough. I can tell a story, and we'll talk later, but I didn't realize my mom was in her 70s one day until I caught a glimpse of the light. Like, girl, how you getting your 70s? And that is because we see them a certain way. We love them a certain way. The last thing is talk about the health home care plan. If this happens, what are the benchmarks of we have to be able to do this and be able to plan accordingly? Since it's time to talk this up, also the power of attorney. We need to be able to take care of them, but also understand that power of attorney dies when the mom and dad die, our parents die, which means that you have to have a will in place for the transition. Okay. So listen, you guys have been great. I appreciate you. Shout out to Black Seed Gummy black seed oil gummies, and all the people doing the great mental health stuff. This is our last show from Chicago. Alhamdulillah. I'll be back at my regular station tomorrow, inshallah. You guys have been great. Appreciate you. And gotta have a discussion about where the important Satana, thank you. Gotta ask them where the important papers are. You don't want to be looking around tearing up that house. You gotta know where the important papers are. And that should not be a secret squirrel question. Find them, ask them, make them take you to it. If there's a key to the safe, get the key. If there's a combination to the safe, understand it. If it's somewhere up in the attic, make them take you up in the attic. But you need to make that happen, because it's really important, because when that time comes and there's a transition, it's a significant transition, you're dealing with so much emotion that this is energy you can't afford to spend. All right. This is a shout out show. Hope you guys had a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.